The aliens called it the perfect shield. It was a wall of pure light that could absorb the heat of 1,000 suns. To them, humanity was just a joke, a species of monkeys playing with gunpowder. But the joke ended the moment Sergeant Miller racked the slide of his 12-gauge shotgun. Click-clack. That sound is the universal language for "get out." The aliens brought lasers to a gunfight. The humans brought the thunder. The command deck of the alien warship, the Starpiercer, was quiet and beautiful. It did not look like a machine of war. It looked like a piece of art. Commander Zyx stood at the large window, looking out at the stars. He was tall, thin, and elegant. His skin was pale purple, and his armor glowed with a soft, pulsing blue light. This armor was the pride of the Vex Empire. It was not made of heavy, clumsy metal. It was made of pure energy. Zyx smiled as he looked at the small human ship floating in front of them. To him, the human vessel looked like a flying box of scrap metal. It was ugly, dirty, and silent. "Prepare the boarding party," Zyx commanded softly. His voice was calm because he knew he could not lose. For 1,000 years, the Vex had conquered the galaxy using superior science. They had mastered the power of light. Their weapons fired focused beams of pure heat, and their defenses were even better. Every Vex soldier wore a photonic shield. It was a masterpiece of technology. It could absorb any laser, any plasma bolt, and any energy beam. To Zyx, the humans were just primitive children playing with flashlights. He felt sorry for them, but he still planned to take their ship. Zyx tapped a glass screen near his chair. A hologram appeared, showing a simulation of the upcoming battle. "Look at their weapons," Zyx said to his crew, pointing at the data. "The humans use standard laser rifles. They are focused light. When their red beams hit our blue shields, the energy will simply disappear. It is basic physics. We are untouchable." The crew nodded in agreement. They had seen this happen 100 times before. Species after species had tried to shoot them with energy weapons, and every time, the Vex walked through the fire without a single scratch. The human ship sent a message, begging for mercy. Zyx ignored it. He did not want to talk, he wanted to take their cargo. He signaled his elite squad. "Teleport onto their ship," he ordered. "Do not worry about taking cover. Walk straight at them. Let them shoot their little red lights at you. It will only make your shields shine brighter." Zyx sat back in his floating chair and crossed his legs. He expected the humans to surrender in less than 5 minutes. He checked his timer. The perfect victory was about to begin. He had absolutely no idea that the humans were about to change the rules of the game. The teleportation beam faded, and the Vex elite squad materialized inside the human ship. The difference between the two vessels was immediate. The Vex ship was bright, clean, and silent, but this human transport was a nightmare of industrial noise. The corridors were narrow and dark. Steam hissed from broken pipes, and the floor vibrated with the heavy thrum of the engines. The air smelled of grease, sweat, and recycled oxygen. To the Vex soldiers, who were used to perfection, it felt like standing inside a garbage can. Unit 7, the squad leader, adjusted his glowing helmet. He saw heat signatures moving ahead. The humans were waiting for them. The battle began with a flash of red light. 3 human security guards popped out from behind a metal crate. They screamed and pulled the triggers of their laser rifles. Beams of focused red energy cut through the dark hallway, aiming straight for the aliens' chests. It was a perfect ambush, but it did not matter. As the red beams hit the Vex soldiers, the blue photonic shields flared up. The energy rippled like water hitting a glass wall and then simply vanished. The Vex soldiers did not stumble. They did not even flinch. Unit 7 laughed softly inside his helmet. The humans were fighting a forest fire with a water pistol. Unit 7 raised his own weapon, a sleek silver staff that fired pulses of blue plasma. He did not bother to run for cover. There was no need to hide behind walls when you were wearing a godlike defense. He fired once, melting the metal crate the humans were using for protection. The humans panicked. They realized their lasers were useless. They kept firing, desperate to stop the advancing aliens, but the Vex just walked forward with terrifying calmness. Every step the aliens took was smooth and graceful, while the humans stumbled and scrambled backward, their boots slipping on the metal grate. The Vex squad moved deeper into the ship, burning through locked doors as if they were made of paper. Unit 7 sent a live video feed back to Commander Zyx. It showed the humans retreating, their faces pale with terror. They were abandoning their positions and running toward the engine room. To the aliens, this looked like a total rout. The humans had no plan, no power, and no hope. The Vex soldiers felt like apex predators walking into a pen of helpless animals. They did not know that the humans were not just running away. They were running to get something else. The human retreat ended at the heavy blast doors of the main cargo bay. Sergeant Miller looked at his squad. They were young, shaking, and terrified. Their battery packs were nearly empty from shooting useless laser beams at the alien ghosts. The air was filled with the smell of burnt plastic and fear. The soldiers looked at Miller, waiting for an order to surrender, but Miller did not know how to surrender. He was a veteran of the Outer Colony Wars, and he knew that when technology failed, you had to go back to the basics. He turned his back on the door and walked over to a dusty, red locker bolted to the wall. It had a faded warning sign painted in yellow, "Kinetic ballistics, for extreme emergencies only." Miller punched the code into the keypad. The locker hissed and popped open. Inside, there were no blinking lights, no computer chips, and no humming batteries. There sat 6 weapons made of cold black steel and polished wood. They were pump-action shotguns, an ancient design that humans had kept for centuries. To a modern soldier used to lightweight lasers, they looked ugly and primitive. They were heavy, clumsy, and brutal. Miller grabbed one. It felt solid in his hands. It did not feel like a piece of electronics, it felt like a tool made for breaking things. It smelled of gun oil and dangerous potential. He tossed one of the weapons to the youngest soldier, Private Jenks. Jenks almost dropped it because of the weight. Miller reached into a box of ammunition and pulled out a handful of red plastic shells. He explained the plan simply. The aliens were wearing fancy mirrors. They were ready to reflect light and heat. But they were not ready to catch a rock. This weapon was not about burning the enemy, it was about hitting them with pure force. It was a physics lesson wrapped in metal. The squad began to understand. The fear in their eyes was slowly replaced by a grim, dark determination. Miller began to load his weapon. He pushed a shell into the bottom of the gun. Click. He pushed another. Click. Finally, he grabbed the slide under the barrel and racked it back and forward with a violent motion. Clack clack. The sound was loud, mechanical, and aggressive. It echoed in the quiet room like a beast waking up. It was a sound that meant violence. The elegant, silent war of the future was over. Miller looked at the blast door. He could hear the aliens burning through the lock on the other side. He raised the black barrel and waited. The thick metal blast doors finally gave way. They glowed bright orange and melted, falling inward with a heavy crash. Through the smoke, the alien squad walked into the cargo bay. They moved with the same arrogant grace as before. Unit 7 was in the lead. His blue shield was humming softly, creating a bubble of protection around him. He saw Sergeant Miller standing 10 meters away. Miller was alone, standing in the middle of the open floor. Unit 7 felt a surge of pity. He assumed the primitive human was making a final, foolish stand with a broken piece of machinery. To the alien sensors, the shotgun read as a harmless tube of steel, inactive and cold. Unit 7 raised his plasma staff, aiming it directly at Miller's chest. Do not move, the alien's voice projected from a translator, sounding robotic and cold. Your energy weapons have failed. Surrender now, and you will not be vaporized. Miller did not say a word. He did not drop his weapon. He simply lifted the heavy iron sights to his eye. He didn't need a computer to aim, he just pointed at the blue light. The room was silent for a split second. The alien waited for a laser beam. He was ready to absorb it. Instead, the world exploded. Boom. The sound was not a zip or a hum. It was a roar that shook the floor plates. A flash of yellow fire erupted from the end of Miller's gun. Hundreds of heavy lead pellets flew through the air at supersonic speed. They slammed into Unit 7's shield all at once. The photonic shield was designed to disperse heat and light, but it had no idea what to do with physical mass. The computer inside the shield panicked. It tried to calculate the energy, but the kinetic force was too much, too fast. It was like trying to stop a speeding truck with a flashlight. The impact was brutal. The shield shattered instantly into a million digital sparks. The lead shot didn't stop there. It smashed into the alien's beautiful, thin armor. Unit 7 was lifted off his feet. The force threw him backward through the air as if he had been kicked by a giant. He flew 5 meters and crashed into the metal wall behind him, sliding down in a crumpled heap. The blue light of his armor flickered and died. For the first time in the battle, an alien did not get up. The rest of the Vex squad froze in total confusion. They looked at their fallen leader, then at the smoking metal tube in Miller's hands. They had forgotten the most basic rule of the universe: things with mass hurt. The remaining Vex soldiers did not know how to react. In their culture, war was a silent exchange of mathematics and light, a clean test of superior technology. But this new human weapon was loud, dirty, and chaotic. Their tactical computers were frantically trying to analyze the threat, but they kept returning an error message: unknown kinetic spike. Before they could recalibrate their shields, the shadows around Sergeant Miller came alive. The rest of the human squad stepped out from behind the heavy cargo containers. They were no longer the scared prey running for their lives. They stood tall, leveling their black steel barrels at the invaders. The sound that followed was deafening. It was not the high-pitched zing of lasers, it was rolling thunder. Boom. 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 The enclosed space of the metal ship amplified the noise until it vibrated in the aliens' chests. The humans fired in a rhythmic volley. Each shot sent a cloud of lead pellets screaming down the hallway. The Vex soldiers tried to dance out of the way, using their superior speed, but they realized a fatal flaw in their strategy. You can dodge a single laser beam, but you cannot dodge a wall of lead. The shotgun spread covered the entire width of the corridor. There was simply nowhere to hide. One by one, the blue energy shields flared bright white and then died. The elegant Vex armor cracked under the heavy impact. The aliens were thrown backward, their delicate bodies crushed by the sheer force of the primitive weapons. The air filled with gray smoke and the sharp smell of sulfur, stinging the aliens' sensitive eyes. They were terrified not just by the physical damage, but by the brutality of it. To them, this was not warfare, it was barbarism. The humans were racking the slides of their guns, click-clack, a mechanical rhythm that promised more pain. It was the sound of impending doom. Panic took over the alien squad. They forgot their elite training. They forgot their empire's honor. The survivors turned around and scrambled over the bodies of their fallen comrades, desperate to escape the thunder. They fired their plasma staffs blindly over their shoulders, burning harmless holes in the ceiling, but the humans kept advancing. Step by step, shot by shot, the humans reclaimed their ship. The hallways that belonged to the Vex 5 minutes ago were now a kill zone. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were learning a painful lesson: in a close-quarters fight, 1,000 years of science cannot save you from a shotgun. On the bridge of the Starpiercer, Commander Zyx stood frozen. The beautiful silence of his command deck felt like a lie now. On the main screen, he watched the impossible happen. His elite soldiers, the warriors who had conquered a dozen solar systems, were running away in terror. The video feed was shaky and full of static, but Zyx could see enough. He saw the flash of yellow fire and the brutal impact that shattered his precious technology. The computer screamed warnings about structural failure and kinetic overload. Zyx sank into his chair. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a cold, sinking feeling in his stomach. He realized that the Vex had spent so much time trying to be advanced that they had forgotten how to be strong. On the screen, the camera feed came from the helmet of a fallen soldier lying on the floor. It showed a pair of heavy human boots walking closer. Sergeant Miller stepped into the frame. He looked down directly into the lens. His face was covered in sweat and grime, and he looked nothing like the clean, elegant Vex. He looked dangerous. Miller leaned in close, filling the screen. He didn't shout or scream. He just looked at the camera with eyes that were hard as stone. Zyx felt like the human was staring right into his soul across the vacuum of space. Miller tapped the barrel of his black weapon against the camera lens. Tap. Tap. Your fancy lights might stop a laser, Miller said, his voice transmitting clearly to the alien bridge. But they don't stop a punch in the face. Tell your friends to stay away from Earth. The transmission cut to static. Zyx did not hesitate. His hands shook as he pressed the emergency retreat button. Get us out of here, he whispered to his crew. Engage the warp drive. Go. Now. The Vex ship spun around and vanished into the darkness of space, leaving a trail of blue light behind it. They were not just retreating from a battle, they were running away from a nightmare they didn't understand. Back in the cargo bay, the silence finally returned. The humans lowered their weapons and looked at each other. They were bruised and tired, but they were alive. Sergeant Miller sat down on a crate and began to reload his shotgun, pushing the red shells in one by one. Click. Click. He patted the cold steel of the gun affectionately. The galaxy was full of advanced civilizations with plasma beams, anti-gravity engines, and photonic shields. But on this day, Hamani.